Oh, you don't need those on.
Okay, we're interviewing Gene Gordon from Anderson Island, and Gene is going to describe what his connection is with Anderson Island and how he got to come to go into the service. So if you could do that, Gene.
Okay, you ready to
Sure.
have me? We will start when I hit Anderson Island. Okay, the war was over in 1945, and I had joined the Army under a lottery, and I was young and I didn't have any children. I wasn't married, so my points were not very high, and 50 points got you out of the Army. When you got to read 55 points. Well, anyway, I spent about 6 months in Japan after the war was over, getting ready to get everybody coming back home and so forth. So when I came back, my family had moved from Lake Chelan over here to Anderson Island, and when I came back to Fort Lewis, I was discharged from Fort Lewis, and my dad picked me up at Fort Lewis and brought me back to Anderson Island, and that's how I became an Anderson Islander. From there on, I only lasted on Anderson Island originally for a month or 2 or 3 months, to 3 months at the most. We tried to help Dad clean this place up because it had gone back to nature pretty well. And one day he said, "Don't you think that you and Larry need to go out and get a life of your own?" Well, we thought we were helping Dad, but this is the Scotch in us. Scotch people are very, they're one way. They want to do it their way, and there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, Larry and Earl, my 2 brothers, got a job at McNeil Island and worked over there until they retired, and then one of them came over here. Larry, the oldest brother, came over here, married a local girl, and my other brother went to Lakewood and operated from Lakewood up to at McNeil Island until he retired. Then they moved over here. Then I left. I went over to McNeil Island. I thought maybe 3 of us get over there and we'd run the place. Well, anyway, they got on. They were hired to help operate McNeil Island. This is federal government, not what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And I went over and applied for a job, and I wore glasses. And they said, "Oh no, we can't use you. You wear glasses." And I said, "Okay." I spent over 3 years in the Army, and they didn't have a problem with that. Well, he said, "We do." So I said, "Okay." So I went back and got a job at Seattle at a steel company and worked there for 30 years until I retired, and then I came out here. So that's pretty much a short story of how I came to be here on Anderson Island.
And so when you were drafted, they had what kind of?
I was drafted, yes. I applied for. I went to Seattle. I was at Lake Chelan at the time I applied. I had a low number. I knew I was going to get in the Army, or in one of the services, or that was the idea that why the draft was. So I said, well, I want to do something different than that, and 2 of us from Lake Chelan hopped in the car and came over to Seattle and applied to the Air Force at, I don't remember the building. So we had a big building in Seattle, and we applied there. And out of the 3 of us, 1 guy got in the Air Force. The other 2 were sent back to Lake Chelan. Well, that was probably a good idea because the guy that did get in the Air Force was shot down on his first trip over Germany, and he lived, but he was pretty well injured, and he just died about 15 years ago. So he lived quite a long line. Then, well, you want to know about Anderson Island?
No, about how you got in the service and
How I got in the service?
Yes.
Where I was in the service?
and what you did in the service.
Okay, in 1940, I had graduated from high school at Manson, on Lake Chelan. In 1942, I was a valedictorian of my class of 1942. That isn't really a great thing because there was only 18 in our graduating class. So, but I was a top guy, and oh, what else? What? Say again. What?
Were you drafted then, or you volunteered, or
No,
how
I
did
was
you get?
drafted.
You
I
were
was
drafted.
drafted. Oh, okay. Okay. Here's the short part of what I did. I was notified that I was to go for my physical at Wenatchee. So I went down to Wenatchee, passed the physical, went back home, was called into the draft, and sent to Salt Lake City, to a fort at Salt Lake City for induction, get our uniforms and take tests to see what our aptitudes were and all this sort of thing. And then after we were through with that, it was only about 30 days, and then we were ready to ship out. And I shipped out to Camp Abbott, Oregon, down in Bend, Oregon. It was a military camp to build bridges across small rivers and so forth. And I took my basic training with a bunch of people that were same deal that I was. They were taking a basic, and then they were to go wherever they were needed.
And that's Navy,
That was Army.
Army. Okay.
I was an engineer at that time. Joined the Army Engineers. That was a Camp Abbott, was an engineering camp. So our people went through the basic, and at that time, then out of basic, I went into the military police. I had choice of military police or medical. And I didn't really want to be a medic. That didn't sound good to me, so I said, oh, I'll be a policeman. So for a year, I was a military policeman at Camp Abbott, Oregon, and Bend, Oregon. And then everybody that was around that area got kind of a pneumonia situation from the dust. It was all volcanic dust, and it's like black dust in the coal mines. You get it in your lungs, and then you get kind of a pneumonia thing. And General Patch brought his 3rd Army over to go on maneuvers, and they all got this sort of thing. They closed the whole mess down and shipped us all over. I went to Fort Lewis here at Tacoma, and they put me in the military police here, and I worked the camps and Madigan General Hospital and everything that they had then. It's all new from Tacoma, not Tacoma General, Madigan General now is not like it was in the old days. There was a few little buildings scattered here and there on one level and this sort of thing, but it worked. It worked for them. And then they figured, well, we've got too many military policemen, so I was selected to go someplace else. So they put my name in for another area, and I went to Camp Claiborne, Louisiana, outside of Alexandria, Louisiana, and took another basic, which was all right because in the time that I was at Fort Lewis, we were taking a basic with the old rifle, the Springfield and the Enfield rifles, all military rifles. At that time, the M1 was manufactured, so we all took training on the M1 rifle. And let's see what else. And after we got through basic, they decided that we had too many military policemen at Fort Lewis. So I went down to Louisiana, took up another basic, and then we took, and then some more tests and so forth, and they decided that I was probably equipped for something that was like engineering again. So I would join the engineering group and went to San Francisco and was shipped overseas. I left San Francisco, and 30 days later I ended up in Leyte in the Philippines. At that time MacArthur was still in Australia. He was scheduled to come to the Philippines and take over the Philippines, but the Japanese had other ideas, so they kind of resisted us a little bit. But we won that and started up through the islands, and finally ended up on Okinawa. And that was a kind of an experience, but it was just something that it was a job, and we did our jobs, and I went up as a technician for what do you call it when you like Boeing built the Boeing plant. When the war was going, they were afraid that the Japanese or somebody was going to bomb Boeing, so they built a town right on top of all the Boeing plants, trees, homes, everything. And they looked at where we were, and they said, "You're supposed to be a T4 rating sergeant, and you're supposed to be a what do you call them? You look at something but you don't see it because of something else. Anyway, camouflage technician. That was supposed to be my MO. But that wasn't anything, because we really didn't need that in the South Pacific. You get up in an airplane and you couldn't see anything because there's trees and all kinds of brush and stuff around. So I took training in a water system, because in the South Pacific, all those islands where the water was not too potable. And so what I did, set up a water camp and had some soldiers working with me, and we built a system and supplied water to all the neighboring army people in Okinawa. And in 1945, some people came through from the Air Force and said, "Anybody got any money?" They said, "Sure, we got some money. We have no place to spend it." They said, "We'll bet you any amount of money in 3 months the war is going to be over." And we said, okay, because I knew we had our papers to go into Japan on the shock force. So we got equipped to go into Japan, and 3 months later they dropped a bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the Japanese finally gave up, and that was the end of the war. But it was an interesting thing. You know, I went in when I was 19 and got out when I was 20, almost 22. And at that point, you don't think that anything can happen to you. Of course, it could, but it didn't. But that's the reason when I flew back to Tacoma and went over to Fort Lewis, got my discharge, and Pop picked me up, and we came over to Anderson Island and started living a life of our own.
Was there any particular event that took place that while you were in the service that really, some particular special event that you can think of, or
It was a job. It was a
nothing
job like any other
yeah.
job. You had a job to do, and you did it. I had a gun. I had a M1 carbine. That's a little carbine that shot a shell that long and about not as big around as your finger.
Caliber 30?
And if you could, huh?
A 30 caliber.
Well, 30 caliber carbine, yeah. It wasn't like a 30-06. You know, that's a gun. But I carried a gun because there were still a lot of Japanese out in the Pacific, and they didn't want to give up. So even though the war was over, we still had a problem because we could be shot at any time from people that were still didn't know the war was over, and they were living in caves and that sort of thing on the islands. And it was like anything else. You just figured you're just going to do this, and then you're going to do something else. Some of the guys did something else, but some of them didn't ever come back either.
Any particular people that stick in your mind that you met while you were over there?
Missed?
Any particular people that you said, wow, you know, this guy or that guy, buddies or big shots?
I really didn't have a lot of friends in the military. It was kind of a clique. Our outfit was 218 men. That was it. And we were attached to the 6th Air Force, or 6th Army, and at that time we were with where the 5th Air Force was. 5th Air Force and the 6th Army did the South Pacific. 8th Army did Europe and some of those others, but that was a real peculiar thing because I wore a 6th Army patch on one shoulder and a 5th Air Force patch on the other shoulder, and nobody knew what the heck I was, and that was fine with me. That was great. I was hobnobbing with generals and all kinds of stuff. But at that time I was running water to Irmagawa Air Base over in Japan, and I had Japanese that would help. We'd give them the materials, and they would set up the. They never chlorinated their water in Japan until we went over there. They had little honey buckets that go around and collect all the waste from the people, and the Japanese spread it over their gardens and raised gardens. Well, they tried to do that over here, but we kind of put the stop to that one. But they didn't, and it's a wonder they all didn't die, but I guess they were used to drinking the water. And so I did the water point, and until we didn't need me anymore at the air base. So I went down to Nagoya, and that was a place where we were supposed to leave from Nagoya. So I went down there and helped operate the camp until it was time for me to catch a. We didn't catch a plane. I came back on a ship, and so I was doing first sergeant work, and I was doing company clerk work, which is a corporal, and. One day the lieutenant, one of the lieutenants came by and said, hey, I got a deal for you. He said, you'd sign up again for another term. He said, I'll make sure that you get a permanent rank. Because at that time, we had temporary ranks. I was a T4, which is a sergeant. And I looked at him and I said, you think I'm crazy? I said, you got me out of high school. I had no childhood. I have nothing. I want to have a life. So I said, send me back to the United States, and I want to live a life. So that's exactly what happened, and ended up here on Anderson Island.
And were any of your other brothers in the service at the same time you were?
Yes, they were in the Seabees in the Navy, which is also a
That was
construction outfit.
That was Earl.
Earl and Larry.
Both of them were Seabees?
Huh?
Both were Seabees?
Yes, both Seabees. And yeah, if you want to, have you seen a picture of?
No, I'd like to take a picture.
There's a picture up there in the corner.
Okay.
You want to grab it?
Yeah.
It's sitting up there, the three of us. Oh, you operate like I do, kind of slow.
Carefully.
Want me to hold it?
Sure. I'll take a picture of it. There's the three brothers. I'll zoom in. There are the three brothers. Which one is which?
I'm the one in the Army. The other two are in the Navy.
Is Earl the shorter one?
Earl's, I'd have to look.
Okay.
Larry's the short one. I'm in the middle, and Earl's on this side.
Earl's on the tall side. Okay. So that's
Yeah,
Earl.
I think we were on a hillside
Okay.
because none of us were very tall people.
Good. There we go.
See it?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.